on this YouTube journey of making the walk, I feel like we've kind of veered away from what the original intent was for making the walk, which is to be a podcast. So what I'm going to do is focus more so on returning to those roots of being the Making the Walk podcast. So going forward, we'll have weekly episodes of the podcast, and that'll be on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, all those platforms, in addition to having our videos shown here for the podcast. Also, we'll continue doing video essays, continue to do live chats, continue to do collaborations with other YouTubers, and of course, on the podcast, we'll always have guests. So we'll always keep that fresh. But I did want to make sure that everybody that consumes podcast in whichever way that you do, that they know that Making the Walk will be there as well. So for this episode, we're going to talk to E. Spencer Kyte from UFC.com and Fighters Only. We'll talk to him about a couple of things, and we'll also talk to Ola from the Fight Week show, and both of those will be talking about what we just saw, UFC 306 at the Sphere. Y'all let me know down in the comments, do y'all think that was a success? Do you think it was a failure? What do you think went right? What do you think went wrong? But yeah, let's get to the show. So I wanted to bring on one of my good friends, a writer extraordinaire. You've seen his work all over the place, but I wanted to really dig into kind of what the thoughts were behind the success, or, you know, for some people, it wasn't a success, of UFC 306 at the Sphere. So for those that don't know, this is Spencer Kyte. Yeah, so we can kind of start it right there. Like, what did you think of the event, as far as like what you saw and what you were able to take in from it?
So, I mean, watching at home, it was, the visuals inside Sphere were spectacular. And so I can only imagine what it was like to be there live and experience that kind of display up close and personal. I'm a little jealous that I wasn't there. Understand, like, not everybody can go. But I mean, sitting at home watching it, it looked amazing. And so just on the visual, like the presentation of it, right? We get week after week of people bemoaning the sameness of the UFC and how trash things look at the Apex and how much they hate the So we got here, we're going nth degree. We're going to the absolute other end of the spectrum. Amazing. From a fight standpoint, I understand people that want to come away and be like, yeah, but the fights didn't. That's not me though. Like, I was fascinated by, especially those final two matchups, the two championship fights. I think we got, for me, really interesting fights that answered a bunch of big questions that I had going in. And so for me, this was a home run. This was a terrific. Now, it's always going to suffer because Dana comes out beforehand and says, this is going to be the greatest thing anyone has ever seen. No one is ever going to have witnessed a sports and entertainment fusion like this in the history of mankind. And then, like, I understand everybody on the prelims that are like, man, they're not showing us the walkouts. And this is just kind of like basic for what is capable, right? We saw on the main card what is capable. Now, I get not rolling out all the bells and whistles for all 10 fights, but it suffers a little bit because Dana set the expectation at the greatest thing you've ever seen. And then when it's not the absolute greatest event ever, because you cannot control the way the fights play out.
Nope.
People come away and they're like, "This is fine." It was way better than fine. Like we're gonna have UFC 307 in Salt Lake City in 3 weeks, and it's gonna be a good show. It's gonna be a good event. Alex Poatan Pereira returning, bantamweight title on the line, bantamweight title eliminator in there as well. Like really good card, and people are gonna be like, "Huh, maybe the Sphere was, maybe that was really special." That's what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to get a like 3 week from now reassessment when we see what an event at Delta Center, which is a nice arena, good venue. We're on the road, raucous crowd.
Yeah.
It's going to look so different, and people are going to retroactively be like, I might have graded that too hard. It's like when we grade drafts, right? We do the draft grades right away, and it's like, these guys get a D. It's like, they haven't played a game yet. Let's just wait and see a little bit. Let's give it a little bit of time. Let's just see what happens. I thought it was amazing. What did you think?
Man, watching it, leading up to it, I made a video, and, I'll link that here so y'all can see it. But I made a video that was talking about what would make this a successful event. And one of the primary things that I said was how it translate to television, because obviously the majority of the people who were taking in the event were looking at it on a screen, whether it be, on their phone, tablet, computer, TV. So how did it translate for the rest of us? And for me, like, that was a event that should be considered when they talk about, the Emmy for best live event type of thing. This should come up. It was that good. Like the money that they spent it wisely. The presentation and the way that they did those 90-minute or 90-second videos came through very well. I think we went back to watch it again just to kind of take in some of that history, and I mean it came over great. Like, but you always have that faction of people who aren't really looking at it for they don't want to be taught a history lesson while they're looking at fights. That's what it comes down to. It's like, that's cool, I can look at that documentary later, but I want to watch these fights right now. So I can understand that, but for what they did and the way that they put it together and the level of difficulty, that is a major part of it. The way that they didn't have that rig overhead, and they still had to manage being able to get the same angles that we're used to as fight fans. Like that level of difficulty was very high, and for them to actually achieve it and have better lighting. The lighting in the octagon was way better than it normally is. Like, the whole thing was spectacular to me. As far as the fights themselves, the majority of the fights to me delivered. I mean, the Zellhuber and Ribovic went over delivered. Like,
right.
I mean, you can't, every fight's not going to be a barn burner. Some fights are going to be dominant, whether it be wrestling or striking. So you really can't do anything about that. And Dana White has said that's something that's out of his control, but he can present it to us the best way that he can. And I think they accomplished that.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because it feels like there is a segment of the quote unquote fight loving population that just keeps shifting the goalposts every time. And so this week it was, well, I don't care about the presentation. The fights didn't delivered. And next week it's going to be, well, the fights were fine, but the presentation was trash. And it's just, this sport, we are constantly looking for those Goldilocks moments, right? Everything has got to be just right. And when it's not, we're angry on either side.
Yes.
And for me, this was one of those ones where it's like, visually, I agree with you 100%. Like, it's ironic that we had Noche UFC on Saturday and the Emmys on Sunday, because a year from now, that crew is going up there and accepting an Emmy for best live sports presentation. 100%.
They will be. 100%.
To roll out those worlds and have each of those main card fights take place in a different location, in a different setting where it felt like it was taking place there is stunning. And so for all the group of people that are constantly bemoaning everything just feels the same and you never know where it is and you've got to get on the road and you've got to be in front of, they just gave you everything you have been asking for. And this is the week you want to decide that what you really care about most are the fights themselves. And then you're going to be hypercritical of the fights themselves, even though, as you said, Ribovic, Zellhuber, bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
Opening fight even itself, right? The Lazy Boy Rodriguez, Ode Osborne fight. Lazy Boy looked like he was out, comes back, wins the fight. Diego Lopez continues to ascend. Sure, it wasn't the 90-second finishes that he was having to start his run of success, but he beat Brian Ortega. And prior to Saturday night, only two dudes had really truly beaten Brian Ortega, and they're two of the three best featherweights of all time. So like, let's just hold off on, fine, Diego Lopez. Valentina Shevchenko goes out and reminds everybody that she's one of the probably 5 best female fighters of all time. And she may not be 4 or 5. She's probably like 3.
I think so.
And then Merab goes out and Merabs and creates a whole bunch of intrigue about not only where he is and what he's going to do going forward, but now new intrigue in Sean O'Malley of how does this dude bounce back from this? Because he, the Cheeto loss, he always just played up as, I got hit and it was this weird thing. There are no excuses for this one. You can tell me any of the different things you may want to tell me afterwards about injuries or whatever. There's no like, I was hurt and it wasn't really a lot. You got your ass whipped for 25 minutes. And I don't care what the scorecard said. This is one of those fights where, it says 49-46 and 48-47 twice. It wasn't that close. We have some times where it's closer than the 49-46 or the 50-45. And we're like, but it was competitive. This wasn't that close. No. And so for me, I came away from it really excited and really looking forward to where these divisions go, what these new champions can do, and just feeling like this thing delivered. It was like UFC 303. It was never going to live up to, or 300, sorry. It's never going to live up to the hype that people had for it and that Dana put on it to a certain extent. But it absolutely delivered.
Yeah, I would totally agree. It delivered to me, like the intrigue that it brought to the bantamweight division. Now that we have a new king of the division, the intrigue that it brings with Diego passing a massive test in Brian Ortega, the intrigue when you look at another interesting fighter in the featherweight division, in Ronaldo Rodriguez. I mean, just imagine what a Ronaldo Rodriguez Manel Kopp lead up would be like. I mean, there's a lot of things that spin off of this that are going to be monumental for those divisions, for those fighters. So I don't know, I was very excited about how this turned out. I really enjoyed the presentation, and I'm super interested to see what happens next. And like you said, the letdown, and it may not be a letdown because I know that Dana White said that he's going to bring some things that he learned from that into his next shows and things like that. And that's cool. Hopefully it's drones and overhead shots and things like that. But you can't do everything you did at the Sphere when we go to Utah. So I'm curious how that's going to look. But to your point, like the people who complain about the Apex, how can you in your right mind go and complain about the Sphere?
Right.
Like, he was like, oh, you don't like to just hear them punching each other, hitting each other in the face and hear the corners. Like, okay, well, how about this?
You want more fans, we gave you more fans. You want more visuals, we gave you all the visuals. But what's
you don't like that either?
that wasn't good enough still? Okay, cool. This is just, and I know like anybody that has followed me for years knows that this is my corner of the like, y'all are just never happy. There's just always something there's always 3 things that you're going to complain about, even when we clear off the other boxes. But like, this was one of those ones to me. And like, if your argument is Well, it didn't work out for the Mexican athletes at Noche UFC. Fine, uncontrollable.
Yeah.
We had a card in Canada to start the year. 2 Canadians got wins. Sometimes it's great, like it was in Vancouver. Sometimes it's UFC 297, where every dude from Canada gets his ass handed to him. You can't control that part. All you can do is make interesting fights and roll them out there and see what happens. They were all interesting fights, and we saw what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of ass handed to him. Like, oh, is this your ass? Here you go.
I mean, just some bad ones too, right? Like just some bad ones. Yasmin Haragwi just
oh my goodness,
taking a club and sub from Kyte.
And you know what's funny is like leading up to it for her, I was like, okay, this is a showcase fight. You know, she's in front of, you know, all these people who could really jump on the hype train for her, and she's fighting somebody she's super favored against. She's going to beat this lady up and make a stamp in that division for herself. And the total opposite is what happened.
See, and I went in feeling the opposite of like, ooh, they're trying to showcase this woman, and I don't think she's as good as Ketlin Souza is, who has won a title in Invicta, fighting very good competition. And yeah, she lost her debut, but it was up a division against an absolute killer.
True.
Unintended, Karine Silva. Now we're back where she belongs, and it's looked pretty damn good so far.
Yeah, for sure. So last question. When it comes to UFC Noche, we've done it back-to-back years. It's been successful. I feel like it's the only event that the UFC has done where they've paid so much attention to the culture. You know, they haven't done that as much for Brazil, even though they've done that a little bit for Brazil. But for Mexico, they really, really paid attention to the culture. And I know that that Dana has talked about doing it in Mexico. That's his primary focus for next year. If not Mexico, probably Texas, Arizona, or California. But do you think that they should continue to do the UFC Noche, you know, Independence Day thing, or should they, you know, the following year, you know, maybe not next year, but the following year, gravitate to another culture or something like that?
I think they can keep doing Noche. I think what we'll probably get to is, for the most part, it'll be a fight night event like it was last year for the inaugural one. Now they brought it to T-Mobile because it was a big enough show and they put enough people around it, and they hyped it up, and they can certainly do that going forward, whether it's in Las Vegas or different locations. I'd also like to see, when they do go to Brazil, ramp that up a little bit more, bring some of those elements. And I hope this is some of the stuff that Dana's talking about, of being able to take from the show at Sphere and implement, because there is something about that celebration of the culture that raises the interest, raises the anticipation. It raises the energy of the event. Mm-hmm. Like, it's something different when you have that venue packed with people there to celebrate Mexican heritage, Latin American culture. Do that in Brazil. Those fans are already there to celebrate every Brazilian fighter that makes the walk. So tie in some of that nationality, bring in some of that flavor of even just the presentation of it, whether it's specialized fight kits, whether it's a little bit more in the graphics presentation in terms of celebrating the region, some more of the video packages that talk about the history and spotlight some of the things. And it can be Brazil, it can be Canada, it can be when you go overseas and you go back to England next year. Once you get to Japan again, and when you go back to, you know, New Zealand, Australia, all of these areas that are involved in this sport have such rich cultures. Dana's thing is always that fighting is in our DNA. It's in every culture's DNA. Yeah. And so you can go and pull the pieces and celebrate that and showcase that. It doesn't have to be Independence Day, some big particular nailed down holiday. But when you go to Brazil twice a year, you can make a big deal about being in Brazil and really pumping up that this is, let's celebrate this culture that contributed so much to where we are. I know going back to Japan and going back to Asia is a massive thing for the UFC. When you get there, celebrate the hell out of these cultures that have contributed so much. Canada, we haven't necessarily, we're not necessarily like, this is where the sport started, but we've had some big stars. We've had some big moments. We're coming here in Edmonton. I don't think they're necessarily going to do it in Edmonton in 8 weeks time, 50 days time, whatever it is.
Yeah.
However, you can still, when you get around to these big shows in places that have those histories, showcase them. Continue to do it with Mexico. Continue to do it with different nationalities. Continue to do it with different regions, because it is so amazing to see. It's a cool way to put a little bit of a theme to an event. Again, going back to that thing we started with, right? People are talking about the sameness. Create some different.
Yeah. Nope. 100%. 100%. Like, you remember Fight for the Troops?
Yeah. Way back in the day, we did the Canada versus USA. We did the, early UFC. The first UFC in England was the brawl at the Hall, and it was all kinds of British fighters. And we used to pit, countries against each other, which is maybe, a little bit something we shouldn't be doing right now. Just like, hey, we're taking on everybody. Yeah. But like, the Brazilian shows are Brazil versus everybody. So let's celebrate Brazil.
Yeah. 100% for sure. Definitely agree with that. I hope that that's the direction that they go. Because a lot of these younger fans, they need to be taught that this is important. These fighters walk out with their country's flags for a reason. And I think championing that is definitely something that will benefit not only the UFC, but just the people who are viewing as a whole, just educating them.
Yeah, I mean, the coolest moment of Saturday for me, and I wrote about it in my big picture series that'll come out on UFC.com this week, shameless plug, was Valentina showing that she is just like the quintessential ambassador for this sport. Not only does she turn in a dominant effort full of incredible technique, insane fundamentals, great timing, all of those things, then she jumps on the mic and speaks 4 languages flawlessly. And just is like, hey, Joe Rogan, I know you asked me a couple questions, but I got some things I need to say. We're going English, we're going Spanish, we're going Russian, and I'll just mix in some Thai here at the end for the people in Thailand that I train with. Like, that stuff matters. You don't see that anywhere else. Celebrate the ever-loving hell out of that stuff every chance we get. We see it, as you said, all these athletes will walk out with their flags. We have the flags. We have the nationalities represented on the fight kits, in the fight kits. Continue to showcase this stuff, because it is so important in helping people understand not only who these athletes are, but how much this means to those regions, to those people in those regions. You and I are probably in a different camp in terms of everyone else, because Americans don't necessarily celebrate all the American fighters. Canadians don't celebrate all the Canadian fighters, but you see it every time an international champion goes home or an international fighter goes home off a big event. It's a huge deal. Yeah. Continue to make it a huge deal going forward.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Cool. Well, yeah, I appreciate you jumping on. We can put a pin in it there, but I will say this. I'm going to do these more often, so I definitely need you back on as many times as we can get it going.
I'm always around. You saw how easy this one came together. Hey, man, what you doing? All right, let's talk in 2 hours. Done. Yep. Anytime. You call, I will answer.
Cool. I appreciate you.
Ladies and gents, it's officially that time of the year. Sun's out, guns out, and let's not forget about the buns out too. Thanks to the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra from Manscaped, you can make sure everything's smooth from your pubes to your bum. Yes, we're talking about keeping your boys downstairs cool while turning up the heat everywhere else. Now let me tell you about the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. This trimmer is a game changer with its dual LED spotlights and skin-safe technology to help reduce grooming accidents. Whether you're at the beach, by the lake, or stepping out of the shower, this waterproof wonder has got your back and your front. Believe me, after a close encounter with my old trimmer last summer, I wouldn't go anywhere else. Thanks to Manscaped, my confidence and my sack are both looking better than ever. And because we love giving back to our fans, here's an exclusive offer for you. Head over to manscaped.com and use promo code MTW to get 20% off plus free shipping. Yes, you heard right, 20% off and free shipping with code MTW. But wait, there's more. Like this video, share it on Instagram or Twitter, tag us, and leave a comment below, and you'll be entered in our drawing to win a free Lawnmower 5.0. Don't miss this chance to elevate your grooming game. So, what are you waiting for? Join the Smooth Sack Summer movement with Manscaped. Get on board or get left behind.
All right, so I had to bring my boy Ola from the Fight Week show on because we got to talk about a very sensitive situation for him. I mean, you know, I'm not going to front. I was going for Ortega. I was hoping that he would be able to pull it off. Oh, see, he's got the hat. He's got the hat. I was going for Ortega. I was hoping that he was going to be able to pull it off, but it didn't go that way. So, how do you feel today in the aftermath of that destruction that happened?
Bro, to answer your question to start with, I feel broken. That's number one. And I tell you why. But then, as much as I say I feel broken that I lost, I want to say I feel broken because of the initial onslaught in the first round.
Yeah.
And I thought, there's no way my guy is going out like this. Like, no way Ortega's going out like this, man. Like, but the fight that he subsequently put on for the rest of the fight, for the rest of the rounds, it went a long way into mending what was broken, if that makes sense, even though he still lost.
Mm-hmm. And
that's not to say we're out here disrespecting Lopez at all, because we know what Lopez is about. We know how dangerous he is. We know the power that he possesses. And a lot of people that fight, that's been in a fight with him, they're all saying how hard he hits, and I think Sadiq Yusuf during the fight came out and said, bro, because I think he lost it, was like, when I tell you that, bro, he hits hard. Yeah. And we know Yusuf ain't no punk, you know what I mean?
No, he's not.
So if he's saying it, then I believe it. And in my opinion, I thought Brian put up the best fight that he could. I was expecting a bit more grappling base. But then, I think towards the third round, Brian started to look good with the striking. And I'm thinking, oh, hold on. If this had been a 5-round fight, who know what might have happened, right? But look, I'm not sitting here hating on Diego Lopez. I think Lopez is done the hard work to get to where he is in terms of being in the top 5. I think he's ranked number 3 or something like that, or will be by tomorrow. So, not to take all the discussion away, I'm hurt that Brian didn't win, but then again, I'm thinking if he did win, then what's next for Brian? You know what I mean? Like, what's really next for him? I don't know if they were going to really give him Ilia Topuria like that. I don't know if that seemed like a big fight for him, for Ilia Topuria himself to even entertain him in the first place. But I think this Diego Lopez fight, though, does set up nicely for an Ilia Topuria fight, just mainly because of their styles. Both of them good on the ground. They both got submissions, and they both got hands. They can knock each other out. So it'll be nice to see what eventually happens when that time comes around. And we've seen Diego Lopez, call out his shot on the post fight interview, and look, fair play to him. Anybody that was picking Brian Ortega, at least from my standpoint and my perspective, it wasn't any kind of disrespect towards Lopez. It's just okay if for Lopez to really prove to us that he really deserved to now be talking title talks, being rubbing shoulders with title contenders and stuff. Get past Ortega. You do that, then you know what? You have my blessing. And I think he absolutely deserved the win. The way he performed, he won every round, and yeah, I can't wait to see what's next for Lopez. But from Brian's standpoint, I don't know what's next for Brian. I'm sure we'll touch on it, but we can try and match make for him in the division. I don't know what's next for Brian, man. I think Brian probably going to take another year off or something. But I love Brian Ortega, man, and it's even though it's scanty, far and few in between, we've had a decent career off of him. You know what I mean? So
for sure,
that's how I feel.
It's interesting, like what we've seen relatively recently, are these fighters who are given kind of the golden ticket to jump up. So you see, Diego Lopez is in the teens and he's jumping up to fight somebody who's in the top 5. We saw it with Benoit Saint-Denis against Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
We saw it with Sean O'Malley against Peter Yan.
So with Esseg and Patoja.
Yeah, exactly. So like we've seen this, and not in most cases, the young person, beats the old lion, and we start to see the decline, and it really does suck to see Ortega start to decline, and I don't know, and when I say decline, I'm only saying decline from the top 5. I don't know that his skills have declined. I think that Diego might be that good,
because people use washed up. Decline, they use it very, very loosely. You know, I mean, I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah, I think that Diego Lopez is just that good. And which brings up another thing is, how good is Mazvar Evloev? The fact that he escaped that onslaught and was able to squeak out a win. So that's the person not to, and Diego probably is going to be ranked above him, which is interesting.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, it is crazy. It is crazy. But I mean, I think Diego does present a lot of intrigue, a lot of a new face in the top 5. And that's something that you don't see in, some of these other glamour divisions like lightweight. We're dealing with the same guys for the most part, Dustin, Justin, same guys over and over again, Charles Oliveira. But featherweight, we're getting, starting to see a cycle of people. And bantamweight, we're starting to see a cycle of people. And I don't know if you felt this way. And this kind of leads me to my next question. Before what's happened recently, I had bantamweight as the best division in the UFC as far as like how deep it is and rich with talent. But how do you feel about featherweight in comparison to the other weight classes?
Featherweight is probably ranked number 4 in my favorite divisions on the promotion, and lightweight is one of my favorites. That's because they're not too big, they're not too small, they are the right size, they're still fast, and they pack so much power. I love the lightweight for that reason. And then when you look at bantamweight, which is my next favorite division, again for the reasons you listed, so deep, everybody there. At least you look at the top 15 and you're thinking, all of these guys are savages. At any given night, one of these could finish any one of these other fighters in that division. Yeah. So I think bantamweight is so rich for that. And flyweight, I mean, the fight we saw between Ronaldo and Ode Osborne is a good advert for why you should love flyweight. If you don't love flyweight for that reason, as a MMA, as a mixed martial art fans, especially fans like us that really follow it deep, like we do, and we look at every single facet of what's going on in the octagon. If you don't love flyweight, then I don't know what you're watching, and then featherweight comes in. So, and the only reason that featherweight was really in that position, and it's no true fault of their own. A lot of the fighters in there aren't that active, especially through the Max Holloway sort of era. You know what I mean? There weren't that much activity going on in that division. But look, it's still a tough division. There's some killers in there, and I'm sure we're gonna see some more killers come through. But when you look at people like Arnold Allen, you look at people like Topura, who became a champion, Volk, the Brian Ortegas, the Bryce Mitchells of this world, like they got some Calvin Kyte. They got some really really tough fighters in there. We had what's the brother from 155? His name just
They dropped down. You talking about
dropped
Edson
down.
Barboza?
Barbosa, yeah. We got him, added to the division. So there's still some killers there. I would just like a little bit more activity going through that division. Just keep that cog wheel, rolling more than it's been rolling. But to be fair to Volkanovski, was a very, very active champion as well. So yeah, I do like the featherweight. That's not to diminish the featherweight. I just prefer some other divisions to that division relatively because of their activity over anything else.
No, that's a great point. So as far as the top of the division, we know that Ilya is going to be fighting Max soon, and we know that Mavzar Evloev is going to be fighting Aljamain Sterling. We know that Diego just beat Brian Ortega, who's number 3. And we also know that Alexander Volkanovski is sitting on the sidelines, healing up, coming off 2 losses.
Yeah.
But he is 2 knockout losses.
Oh.
But he's sitting on the sideline, healing up as a long-reigning champ. How do you match this up? How do you think this should go?
I was saying on the live stream, I've had a little bit more time to think about it, and if Lopez sat out and wait for the results of Max and Ilya, I wouldn't be mad at it because of who he just beat and beat convincingly as well. So I wouldn't be mad at that at all. But at the same time, I'd like to see him get one more fight before seeing the champion. I'd like to see him get one more fight, but you can't say Brian Ortega being Yair Rodriguez, who just fought for the interim championship. That's a gateway to seeing the champion. So if he's just beat that guy, doing a little MMA mafia, if he's just beat that guy, this is how he's probably going to be looking at it. I've just beat Ortega, who beat the number 1 contender for the title. Then surely I should be the number 1 contender for the title. So he probably don't want to fight nobody else, knowing how dangerous they all are at the top of the division at 145. Till he sees the champion and he'll take his chance there and then go from there. So for me, if I was to really do it, I'd probably say one more fight for Lopez. But from Lopez's perspective and standpoint, he'd probably be saying, no, I'm sitting everything out now. I'm going to wait for Max and Ilya to dance, and whoever wins, you know what? Matter of fact, make me the backup for that fight. How about that? I'll turn up, make weight, put me as a backup for that fight. So, there's a few options there for the matchmakers of the UFC to really chill on and see what they want to do with Diego Lopez. He took a little bit of damage, so I don't think he's going to be one of those where he's going to get thrown right back in it. Probably the end of the year, if he really wanted to get in there, maybe early part of next year, because we're in September now. So yeah, maybe early part of next year could be the time we see Lopez again to compete for. Because obviously, depending on what happens between Ilya and Max, depending how banged up they are when that fight's done, so who knows? So yeah, I'll probably be looking at the early part of next year for that fight to happen. But if I was to do it, think about it, make Lopez the backup for that fight, or make him sit out, wait for the winner of those two, and then go from there. And if he doesn't want to wait, take one more fight, take another top fiver, show everybody. We know it's not a fluke because we know what it's about, but show everybody that you're really about it. Because when you become champion, you're going to be taking on all comers anyways. So show us you're really about it, and everybody will probably get behind him. So, Ilya had to do that. And yeah, let's see if Lopez can do it.
True. Ilya did have to. He walked a pretty difficult path to get to champion.
Yeah.
I think if I'm Lopez, like, I'm doing everything I can so that my next fight is for a belt. But at the same time, I know the UFC has reverence for Alexander Volkanovski, and they're going to give him another shot. So it's like, do I want to wait for whomever wins this fight to fight Alex again? Or because, all right, so here's the MMA math part of it. So Ilya and Max fight. If Ilya wins, then I think the UFC is more likely to go Diego.
Right.
But if Max wins, then that opens the door wide open for Volkanovski to walk in there. He's got 3 wins over him.
Uh-huh.
Not 3 wins I agree with, but he's got 3 on paper.
Yeah, he does.
So I feel like it depends on who wins on what Diego is going to do. Because if it's Max, and then the other part of Max's situation is Max has options too. Because if Max wins, does he have to fight a featherweight, or can he go up and fight a lightweight and challenge for the belt? He just knocked out the number 2 contender at 155.
Yeah.
And the UFC has reverence for Max.
They do.
So, like, it's so convoluted, but not in the sense of we don't have options like light heavyweight does. They don't have options. So that's why they got to go and get Khalil Roundtree. But featherweight has too many options.
Yeah. What's to say Max don't want to, compete for BMF again? If the settings was right, if the occasion was right, he might say, you know what, I defended this undisputed too many times. I'm going to put that to one side. Who wants some of this BMF? You know what I mean? No, even though I think the reason why he's held back or not giving it to Ilya, because Maxim strikes me as the type of person that would probably put the belt down if you weren't really begging for it. If you weren't asking for it the way Ilya was asking for it, Max is probably the type of guy that would just throw that in the mix and say, you know what? Let's do this for the BMF and the undisputed. But because Ilya was so bent on the fact that, bro, I'm only fighting you if you put your... And Max said, oh, what is that? That's the energy you're on? Okay, no. But I know the UFC will still do what I want, which is take your belt, fight for your belt. But no. So I think that's what's gone on there. And Max will, if he does win, will have plethora of options for the type of fight that he wants to fight. He could look back at 155. He could give somebody a shot at 145. Hell, if Conor comes out and start running his mouth, he might say, you know what, let me get some of that red pants tonight as well. Who knows? Yeah. So for me, I think there's a lot to expect out of this division now with this new landscape that we now have with the Diego Lopez in there. Ilya being a new champion, hasn't defended yet. Volk sitting out after losing for the first time at 145 since becoming a champion. There's even a shout for Aljo that's just beat Kyte, who was, a top 5 fighter for quite a long time in that division. And he's a former champion that's come up from 135. He could, he's also got a case up in there to at least see one of the 145ers that's in the top 5. So I like the landscape right now. It's just, what are they going to do with it? You know what I mean? Or what they're going to do with it. And that's what we all got to sit down and wait for as mixed martial arts fans.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I feel like 145, before Ilya took that belt, was really just the two kings up there beating up everybody, with Alex and Volk. And now it's way more interesting, because I was actually starting to sour on the 145 division, not in saying that they were, they weren't good or anything like that, but it just wasn't as interesting as some of the other divisions, because that just, to me, that's what happens when you have a dominant champion. It makes the rest of the division seem stale.
Yeah.
And now we have some interest, because Max very well may beat Ilya, and vice versa. Ilya could be the one that take Max's chin, and Diego might beat either one of them. Like, we don't know.
You just don't know. It's so weird when you look at that division now, and to think how Max dominated it for so long, Alex being pound for pound champion, being pound for pound number one for the entire promotion, just off the back of working, just dominating that division for as long as it did. It dared to go up. It dared for glory against Islam. It didn't quite work out. But look, this is where I feel for Alex a lot, because I think it shouldn't have taken the fight against Ilya as soon as it did. I think maybe if he sat out and recovered, just get back some of your chin, some of that knockout serum out of his system. I think he might have been able to get through it. But again, knowing how hard Ilya hits, to do what he did to Black Country Banger, like, bro, to do that to him over here in the UK. I was there in the arena. I was there. I saw it. I was like, whoa. And then he called up Paddy Pimblett. I was like, oh my, this is going on mad. Do not let Paddy anywhere near this guy with the way that this is chin so high up. Like, no. Oh, yeah. And UFC got the message. They saw it. They're like, there's no way we let Paddy anyway. You're gonna kill the money.
Yeah.
You're gonna kill the money, mate.
Can't mess up that money train. Yeah. Yeah, no. Ilya's got some smoke behind him for sure.
And then to then finish Bryce Mitchell how he did, because I'd never really seen that before. And I was like, holy shit, like, what, this guy can do this to somebody like Bryce Mitchell, that just, this is bread and butter, and he does it to them. I thought, okay, you know what? You got me. You got me, man.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of Thug Nasty, man. You know what I mean? And to dispatch him the way he did, that really cemented my legitimacy for Ilya. I'm like, you know what? You can go do what you need to do now, bro. You know what I mean? So
you know what got me to really pay attention to Ilya Taporia was actually the Ryan Hall fight, because of how weird Ryan Hall is. Yeah. I was like, how is he gonna, not to say that Ryan Hall's unbeatable, obviously, but he's so weird and tricky. And the way that he got around that and was able to knock him out, like, that let me know, like, his mind is right there with his physical skill.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, man, that dude's gonna be good. Now, I didn't know he was gonna knock out an all-time great like that, but I thought he was gonna be pretty good. Yeah. But he's next level. He really is.
He's different, man. He's a very, very special fighter. And I just want to see more activity from him now. It's been a minute since he's become champion, not rushing him back, but it'd be nice to really, just get on the workhorse now. This is where you said you want to be. Now you're here. Give us activity, So let's see if he stays true to that.
Hopefully so. Hopefully.